started with today's Model Monday. So, welcome. It is after 7. We're at the Milwaukee Makerspace where we draw stuff in 3 dimensions. We've got a new student joining us, so I'm going to kind of give a brief overview of the drawing environment here. Up at the top right-hand corner, actually up at the top, all of our tools that we're going to be using are up at the top here. They're organized into wonderful menus. In general, we will start on the right and work our way over to the left. So we'll start with things in the Create menu. We'll bounce over to maybe the Modify menu to modify those things that we've created. We probably won't do any assembly or construct in this class, but in the past we've done stuff like that. We're looking at our drawing environment here. If we want to twist and turn our drawing environment around, we can use the navigation cube up in the top right-hand corner. So we've got a little cube up here in the top right. If I hover my mouse over that, anything that turns blue, I can click on, and I will be looking directly at that side. Now, in the blank, yeah.
Create a team or join existing team?
You want to create a team. If you're new, you're going to create a team of just you. You are the only person in your team right now. You're welcome to make friends and invite them to your team. I think that's what makers do at the parties they go to. You know, they go to like cocktail party, and they're like, "Hey, what's up? I got you. Want to be on my Fusion 360 team?" So they like it's like an icebreaker. You know, that's what people would call that. You're like out at a bar, you see somebody attractive across the bar, and you're like, "Hey, I bet that person would like to be on my Fusion 360 team. I should go."
Together?
You know anything about lofting? I can tell you how to use the loft tool. Or what other tools here can I use in a non-inappropriate way? Sketching. We can use the sketch tool together. That'd be fun.
And get into some sketchy situations.
I mean, that would be an inappropriate way to use these tools. And again, I'm trying to avoid that. We don't have a HR department here at the Milwaukee Makerspace, but I don't want us trying to form one because of me, that's for sure. So if I open up a model when I've got more stuff in it here, you can kind of see this navigation cube. I can click on it and things happen. So I can click on the top corner of that navigation cube and I look right down at it. I can also click and drag on this navigation cube and kind of move around in a little bit more finite way. And as we start drawing, hopefully this stuff will start to become more familiar to you. I think 70% of people's frustration initially is just trying to navigate around the drawing environment. You got a 3D space here, and that navigation cube is a key way to do so. The other ways to do so are my trackpad or your mouse. If you use the scroll wheel of your mouse, you can zoom in or out. On my trackpad, I can just kind of zoom in or out here. And then down at the bottom, sometimes I find myself using some of these tools down here. There are a couple of navigation tools down here. There's an orbit tool. I don't really use the orbit tool very much. I tend to use the navigation cube up in the top right. There is a zoom in and zoom out. Again, I don't really use those tools because I tend to use my scroll wheel or my trackpad, my mouse to zoom in and out. However, there's a hand tool here. On rare occasions, I find myself using the hand tool just to pan left or right or up or down. Just a note, anytime you're using a tool, you're technically holding a tool from down here. You can't really do anything when you're holding that tool. In order to put the tool away, you just hit the escape key. And now I can do stuff with my regular mouse pointer again. The last 2 things that I'll point out to you are as we start drawing stuff, in general, we start by making 2-dimensional sketches. As we start making 2-dimensional sketches, we'll have a folder in our browser here that pops up here and it says sketches on it. Again, I'll open my example document here. So here I've got a sketches folder, and you can see all of my really well-named sketches. You can see I named that one sketch 2, so I would remember exactly what's on that layer. And I would encourage you to do so as well. As we take those 2-dimensional sketches and we make them 3-dimensional, we'll have a little bodies folder that pops up here. And our bodies folder will be all of our 3-dimensional objects that are part of our scene. So here that body is that body there. And again, I've done a really good job of naming this body, body 1, so I obviously remember what body 1 refers to. You know, like obviously, who couldn't forget what body 1 is? It's definitely clear. It's definitely not clear.
Well,
and I'm
it's definitely
being,
not body 9.
well, yeah, clearly. I am much better at this than I was. Now you'll just have to take my word for it. At the bottom, the other thing that will change here as we start drawing is right now our document is completely blank. There are no icons down here. This is our feature timeline. As we start drawing, we'll start having little icons that pop up here. This is kind of like a series of steps that I did to get from where I started to where I am right now. And at any point, I can go back in time to this step here, and I can change something about that step, and then I can come back into the present, and those changes will be reflected along the way there. All right, cool. Any questions about the drawing environment before we start drawing?
I have one question.
Yes.
Just if you wanted to make something, it was like 3D, but you wanted it to be like a mesh, like I don't know how to explain it. Like, I explain what I say, but it's like you want it to be strings, like
Screen?
like a screen, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but in layers. Does it do that?
I don't know how to do that. How to make a weird screen thing. Let's talk after class.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, cool. So today we're going to be drawing a light switch cover. Again, our project is a fairly basic kind of project here. I have a light switch that's right inside of my front door when I walk into my apartment. And I like to be able to put my keys in my wallet and like, hey, I got some mail. I'm going to put some mail on this. So we are going to make that light switch cover. In fact, hopefully there'll be some room for customization here. You guys can make your own light switch covers to hold your own things on them. Whatever those things may be, that is up to you. We are going to start by clicking on our Create menu, and we'll choose to create a sketch. In general, the way we do things is we start by making 2-dimensional sketches here, and creating a sketch is how you make that 2-dimensional sketch. I will point out, though, just for the eyes of our new person, I don't mean to keep calling you out. I hope I'm not embarrassing you. So we have these tool tips that pop up. Almost anything that I hover over will give me a tooltip infusion. This makes it, I think, really beginner friendly, so you can read these tooltips if you've never used a tool before, and it tells you both what the tool does and how to use that tool. So for example, the sketch tool here says it enters sketch mode where you create geometric profiles that define the foundation of a design. And then how to use it is you select a construction plane, then create lines, arcs, or points. So let's choose that sketch tool. And now if I just stop moving my mouse again, Fusion will once again tell me what to do. It says I'm supposed to select a plane or a planar face. Yeah.
I just said create sketch, but I didn't see the drop down that you were talking about.
Oh, it wasn't really a drop down. It's kind of like a, if you stop moving your mouse out in the drawing view, it kind of gives you this little tip here.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have to select, in order to draw a 2-dimensional sketch, we need like an imaginary piece of paper to draw on. And these 3 yellow boxes here are my imaginary sheets of paper that it gives us to start off with. It doesn't really matter which one you choose, but you can see as I hover over them, they change from yellow to, I don't know, gray, I guess we could call it. And I'm going to pick this one that is my front, so I can see that I'm looking at the front based on my navigation cube here. So I'm going to choose that plane in between my green and my red axis. And we will spin around so we are looking directly at that plane. I heard some
Yeah.
question made. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. So now you can see all of your tools and change to sketching tools up here. We've got all two-dimensional sketching tools here. And then we've got a sketch
sorry?
palette up here. So you're what's known as editing a sketch. Right.
I had a lot of trouble seeing, that was me. Like,
Oh, sure.
next to
Cool. Yeah, so you just need to pick that plane there.
You center
There we go.
or just stay as is.
You don't need to rotate anything. Yeah, you're just kind of looking straight down. It kind of automatically rotated you. So you're looking straight down at this sheet of paper, this imaginary sheet of paper. We are going to start by drawing our constraints here. So the constraints that we have in our design is going to be the placement of our light switch and the placement of our mounting holes. And I think the best way to draw those is going to be first with a center rectangle. So if we choose from the Create menu, you'll notice that now that we're editing a sketch, so when we're editing a sketch, we've got our sketch palette open here, and all of our tools change to two-dimensional drawing tools here. So now that same Create menu at the beginning that had a whole bunch of different options now has a whole bunch of different options in it because we're editing a sketch. So if we hover over rectangle and then over to center rectangle, and again, this tool tip tells me both how to use the tool and what the tool does. So it creates a rectangle using 2 points to define the center and one corner. I'm supposed to select the first point as the center of the rectangle and then select a corner point or specify width and height values. So I'm going to click on that center rectangle tool. I'm going to hover my mouse right over the middle of my drawing view here, and I get a little blue square. As a rule, I think it's a good practice to have some part of your drawing connected to this middle point here. For reasons that I won't really get into, because we'd have to talk about constraints and all sorts of weird stuff, let's just kind of keep it in mind that it's a good practice to have some part of your sketch connected to your center point, your 0, 0 point of your world there. So I'm going to click one time and then release. So it's a click and then release and then move, not a click and drag. So I clicked, I released, I moved. Now I can see numbers.
In inches?
In inches.
What? No!
So if you click on Create, and then rectangle, and then center rectangle. Yeah.
About how large?
So we are going to make it exactly 3/8 of an inch by 1 inch. So it's going to be 1 inch tall, and it's going to be 3/8 of an inch wide. Once you've got your rectangle here, anytime you move your mouse, it's going to get bigger or smaller. So once you can see numbers, I encourage people to let go of your mouse and embrace your keyboard, and you can type numbers. And because that seems weird to me, but that is definitely the right size.
You said 1 inch tall by
Well, you
By
said
3/8.
You have 3/5 of
I
it.
have 3/5. That is, that was a test.
Yeah.
You passed, sir, with flying colors. Gold star.
358.
358. That was not a test. That was a typo that time.
Yeah.
Cool. How was it?
Looking up how to change the units.
Oh, sure. So
I actually found it.
if you need to change the units, in the document in our browser here, if you happen to be drawing in a unit of measurement that literally everybody else in the world uses, in the browser, you can see where it says document settings. If we click open the little triangle, we can see units. And then if we hover over units, there's a little icon that appears right next to where when you hover over it. And if you click that icon, you can change it to freedom units, or inches as some people call them.
Or feet.
You could change them to feet. That would probably work. I mean, you'd have a really big light switch cover. Yeah.
3/8 of a foot by 1 foot.
All right.
That's a second ago and I lost it.
So once we've got our little
Well,
rectangle,
it's only 1 inch. Great.
so
Oh, wait. I think we're doing that right now. Okay.
So that it doesn't matter here.
No, it doesn't matter there. And then you want to click on that little icon there, and then inches, and then you got
We
beautiful.
said 1 inch by.
1 inch
I think
fine.
it's-
So here, if you delete that, so now if you grab that rectangle tool, so it's a click and move, not a click and drag. So you're holding your mouse right there. So I would you just have to click one time and let go of your mouse button, and then you can move. So now you can let go of your mouse altogether, and now you can just type in the dimensions. So you can type in 3/8 or 0.325.
7/5.
And then if you hit the tab key, it will bounce you over to the other dimension. But you've got a nice learning opportunity there. So if we want to add a dimension after the fact, we can do that. So let's say you forgot to type in a dimension there. In the Create menu here, if we scroll down to Sketch Dimension, and now I choose, I had something selected. So here's another teachable moment, right? I have something selected. In general, this is bad practice. We want to choose the tool and then choose the thing we want to do with, choose the item that we're going to select with that tool. So if I have something selected and I go to pick a tool, for example, my Sketch Dimension tool, it's going to say, oh look, you've got something selected. Obviously that's the thing you want to put a Sketch Dimension on.
Wait, are you not by
And-
1 inch anymore?
Well, I am. I'm just showing people how to add a dimension after the fact if they forgot to add a dimension.
Oh, okay.
So as a rule, or as a general practice, if you just kind of click off into nowhere land, then you don't have anything selected. And now we can choose to grab our Sketch Dimension tool. And I'm going to click on one of my lines that I forgot to put my dimension on. And again, I'm going to click and release, and then move my mouse out to the side. And then I'm going to click a third time, or second time, to place that dimension. So now it says that this is 2.057781.596. And we can just change that to 1 and hit enter, and it will resize that for us. Cool. Cool? Cool. All right, so now let's use that knowledge that we just gained in order to make the next bits of our sketch here. So from my Create menu, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the Circle tool. And the particular circle tool that I'm going to use is going to be our center diameter circle. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that center diameter circle. C key on the keyboard. Again, when you're at that cocktail party and you want to judge if people can be in your Fusion team or not, if they know the keyboard shortcut for circle, they might be a good team member. Just a, just a pro tip. Let's call that. I would like to make my circle directly above the center point that I've already got on my rectangle here. But we are going to, I'm going to purposefully make it in a bad spot so we can add those dimensions and constraints after the fact. So I'm going to click and place the center of my circle. Again, it's a click and release, not a click and drag. So I click, release, move my mouse, and now I can type in that it is a 1/8 of an inch hole. 1/8 of an inch. Foot 125. Or you can type in inches if you want to here. 1 divided by 8. For some reason, if you use freedom units, 1/8 of an inch is a round number. And now that I'm done typing in the diameter of that circle, I'm going to go ahead and click enter. Now, I want to give it a dimension from the center point here. And for some of you who are paying attention, you may have learned how to do that just now. So I want to define the dimension between the center of this circle and the center of my center rectangle here. And we can do that using that, adding that sketch dimension after the fact here. So again, I've got nothing selected. And I'm going to choose that sketch dimension option. I'm going to choose the center of my circle, and I'm going to zoom in just to make sure that I click on the center of my circle. And then I'm going to zoom back out, and I'm going to click on the center of my center rectangle. And again, these are all click and releases. And now if I hover my mouse, you can see here I can make a dimension that's kind of at an angle. And that is not what we want to do. We wanted to make a dimension that goes straight up and down. So if I move my mouse off to the side far enough, my dimension goes straight up and down here, and I can place that dimension. Now, I don't actually know the distance between the center of that and the center of this, but I know the distance between the two holes. So we're going to do math here. It's going to be 2 3/8 divided by 2.
3/8 is 375.
Is it?
Yeah,
Yes.
this is 2.375.
Fine.
That's what it is up there, on that other one.
Oh yeah, look at that. Good call. So we're going to make it 2 3/8 divided by 2. The spacing between the holes on either side is 2 3/8, and I'm pretty sure it's right in the middle. So we're going to place that dimension, and it'll pop into place in height here. Now we just need to get it to pop into place right to left. And we can do that by using the constraints menu. So a constraint is a rule about your sketch that tell it how to be the sketch that it is. So for example, I've got a whole bunch of constraints out here that have kind of been automatically added to the sketch that we've just made. For example, all these little icons here, these are constraint icons. So those are rules that have been kind of automatically put in place based on how I was drawing my sketch. This is a parallel constraint. So when I click on this one highlights as well. So it's telling me that the rule about these lines is that they're always going to be parallel with each other. And this here as well. If I click on this, these become highlighted with each other. So the rule there is that they're always going to be parallel with each other. This point has a bunch of different constraints. This point, these are coincident constraints. So they're kind of saying, hey, this box cannot move away from this point here. So we can add a rule, a constraint, that will say, hey, this circle has to live directly up above this point. And that particular constraint is called the horizontal vertical constraint. So it says, hey, this point has to be either straight horizontal or straight vertical from another point. So we're going to go ahead and choose that horizontal vertical constraint tool there. And I'm going to pick on my center of my circle and then the center of my rectangle. And hopefully they popped into alignment. Nice, very nice. There, premium. Yeah, so horizontal vertical there. And then if you choose that one, and then this guy right here. And then the other rule that we added was, well, I was just kind of pointing out some other constraints that already existed in the document. But the other thing that we want, good. I think you're, oh, we just got one rectangle. So what you're seeing there is my dimension. So it's just one rectangle, and then you're talking about this over here.
Yeah.
That is actually just my dimension there. So I can move this dimension anywhere. It's just kind of telling me how big that is there. So we're going to do this exact same procedure to the other side. So,
Yeah, mine did not.
oh, let me come over and take a look.
I got lost some of them. That one.
So here, if you want to say sketch dimension, and then you can define a distance between that center point and that center point. And if you move your mouse off to the side, there we go, and then you can just click and place that dimension. And now you can type in, that was 2 3/8 divided by 2. So, you got your sketch dimension tool, or you got your, yeah, grab your sketch dimension tool first. And then you'll click on the center point of your circle. And then you'll click on the center point. There we go. And then if you move your mouse over here, there we go. Now you can click and place that dimension. You just gotta click and place that. Now you can type in 2 3/8 divided by 2. That's all right. You can, if you accidentally got 2 3/8, you just double click on it, and now you can add in, like divided by 2. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Nice. All right, and now, yeah, your horizontal vertical constraint there is the top of the list, and then you can specify the circle. So you just want to click one time, not click and drag, just click. That's all right. And then you'll click here. There we go. Beautiful.
Just follow, should I have the other constraints that you have in it? 'Cause I did see the
No. I think you were all good. Yeah.
Okay, that was just confusing.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. So
Everything's black, so you don't over define it anyway.
yeah. So once all of your lines are black, you're good. You're fully constrained, which is a thing that I didn't mention. Thank you. All right, cool. So we're gonna do that same thing on the other side of our rectangle. So I'm gonna come up to my create menu. I'm going to come down to the circle tool. I'm going to grab the center diameter circle. I'm going to place it somewhere down here, close enough. I'll tell it how big my circle is, which is 1/8 of an inch. I wonder if light switch sockets are actually metric. I wonder if those holes, really? Yeah?
632.
Oh! All right. You learn something new every day. All right, cool. Yeah. All right, so now we're going to dimension that there. You notice I look towards our resident expert in all things electrical. Alright, so I'm going to place that sketch dimension just like I placed it before. It's going to be my 2. And, you know, I don't have to.
Equation you can put in parentheses.
Yeah, so I can do 2 3/8 divided by 2. Now the other thing that we could be doing here is instead of dimensioning it from the center,
Oh,
I could be dimensioning it from the other circle. So like the first time we didn't have this other circle here, but the sketch dimension that I add could be the dimension between those 2 items. That will get me to the same place.
that would just be showing 3/8.
It would. So however you want to do it, it's fine with me, as long as the distance between them is 2 3/8. And then I'm going to add my horizontal vertical constraint again. And I'm going to constrain those.
1/8, 1/2.
And then I'm going to come over, 1/8 is the size of that circle. And then from here, if you feel like just drawing away, so here we'll use our sketch dimension tool. And then we'll dimension the center of that circle to the center of that. And if you move your mouse off to the side, there we go, then you can just click and place that dimension. And now that's going to be our 2 3/8 divided by 2 again. There we go. And then from your constraints menu, we'll add that horizontal vertical constraint that makes it go straight up above. Exactly. Perfect. Love it. Nice. Cool. Happiness.
I accidentally did the fastest one
Nice.
so much.
All right, cool. So I think the last things that we need to do here is now we need to add some stuff to hold whatever we want to put on our light switch, right? So our light switch cover definitely needs to be a certain height. It needs to be taller than 5 3/8. Nope, 4 3/8. 4 3/8 by 2 3/4. So we definitely want to cover up all of the electrical bits in there. So let's add one more rectangle here just to make sure we've got a rectangle that's big enough. So from our create menu, let's grab the center rectangle tool one more time here. I'm going to put the center of my rectangle right at the center of my first center rectangle here.
What in the heckerdoodle? Where is it? Back to millimeters.
And I believe I said the width was 2 3/4, so 2.75, and our height was 4 3/8. I'm going to verify those measurements while I leave them up on the screen there. Cool. So this rectangle is just kind of a reference rectangle for us here. We can make it bigger than this. We just probably don't want to make it smaller than this, because if we make it smaller than this, there's a risk of us, when we replace our electrical cover with it, that we'll have some exposed bits, which is the technical electrician term for it, exposed bits. And nobody likes to have exposed bits. You can go to jail for that.
4 3/8.
Yeah, 4 3/8 by 2 3/4. The most fun part of Fusion 360 Glass is definitely copying down all of my measurements. Right? I mean, maybe it's the second most fun. But the third most fun is where we can just start drawing stuff here now. So it definitely needs to be 2 3/4. I'm going to make mine a little bit bigger because I think I need some more room than this. So I can double click on that measurement and I can change it. I'm going to give myself like 3.5.
Now, the most fun is when you twirl your mustache equally and flat on.
Yes,
what
I'm
seems
going
in
to
your
give
head.
it 4 inches. Okay.
Technically,
Um,
you are plotting.
That is true. I am. You're not allowed to have better jokes than the teacher. That's a rule. Okay. That was good, though. Thank you. All right. So now we can just start drawing stuff. So I really like to have like a peg because I got keys. I got car keys that I want to hang. So a peg at this point is just going to be a circle. So I'm going to come to my center diameter circle tool again. And I'm going to put it down here somewhere. This seems like a good spot for a peg. I'll make my peg bigger than 1/4 inch. It probably needs to be like a 1/2 inch peg if we're going to 3D print this thing, it needs to have some beef to it. Otherwise it'll just fall apart. So I'm going to make my 1/2 inch peg there. Now my peg is just kind of floating because I don't know exactly where I want to put this, so I'm just kind of leaving it unconstrained down here. It's blue, so which means it's not fully constrained. So it's been constrained in dimension, but it's not really constrained in position.
Right.
And that's fine for me for this case. Let's see, what else do we want to put on our a pegboard holder? Maybe we want to have like a little shelf. I've got a shelf on mine. So, not a pegboard holder, our little wall mount holder. So I've got a shelf near the top of mine. And sometimes if I don't feel like opening my mail right away, I just kind of put it there when I walk in the door. So for our purposes, a shelf is just going to be a rectangle. So, yeah.
Is that 0.05?
Yeah, point 0.05. So, I'm sorry, yeah, so 0.5, which is 1/2 inch, is how big I made my peg. And then our shelf here, I'm just going to make it a 1/4 inch in height. So I just grab my 2-point rectangle tool. So from the create menu, I grabbed rectangle and then 2-point rectangle. And I used it to make a little shelf up here that was 1/4 inch thick. Now, maybe you want to have more than one peg. Maybe your partner also comes in the same door as you, and they would also like to hang their keys up. So you can put a couple pegs if you want to. Or like I used to have, during the pandemic, we had to have like 50 different masks. So, you know, I'd hang I had like 6 pegs, and I'd hang my masks up there so I could choose which mask I was going to wear on my way out the door in the morning. I put a, yeah.
Is there a way to modify the size of
There sure is. If you can see a dimension, any dimension that you can see, you can just double click on it, and you can then change that dimension. Cool? No? If you can't see a dimension, you may have to add a dimension to it using our sketch dimension tool. Oh yeah, I made it a 1/4 inch.
So I'm gonna click this.
So now you can hit it. So right now that's the highlighted number. So you can hit the tab key, and you'll pop to the other dimension. And now you can type in your 0.25.
But what if, let's say I didn't have this, would there be a way to edit it and
Well, until the rectangle, like before you make the
let's say
rectangle.
right now I wanted it narrower.
So now, no.
Oh,
Just because, so we clicked and placed our first corner up here,
okay.
and it added a rule, added a constraint saying, hey, this has got to be always on that corner. And then when we click to place the other point of our line over here, it said, all right, now that line, this point has always got to be on that line. So if you wanted to not have it like that, you'd have to kind of start in the middle here somewhere. Does that make sense? Yeah. Cool.
Like right now, like if it's the same as the one
Yeah.
so you even have like these. There's no way to open afterwards.
So if you just double click on that dimension, no, double click cancel. Maybe actually the number will highlight. There you go. Double click on that.
Okay, and then that's how you.
Yeah. And 0.5, not 0.05, is 0.05 probably won't hold unless you only have like one key. If you've got like a single key, one key to rule them all, and the darkness bind them. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, click on my Finish Sketch button. I am done making this sketch. So there are two ways that I can finish my sketch. I can either click on the Finish Sketch button right over here, or conversely, you can click on the Finish Sketch button in the top right-hand corner. I guess it's not really converse. It's similarly. Alternately. There we go. That's the word I'm going to go with. So I'm going to alternately click on that little green Finish Sketch button at the top right-hand corner. So I like the way it looks. Makes me feel good when I finish a sketch.
Yeah, but we haven't defined the height for our shelf or the location for that other circle.
We have not. And for these purposes, I'm fine with it. It doesn't really matter that much.
Okay.
This is all aesthetic. Doesn't need to fit with something else. It just needs to have a shelf and a peg. Where exactly that shelf and that peg are is up to you to decide, whatever looks best. All right, so now we can finally create some three-dimensional objects. So our create menu, now that we've left our sketch, our editing our sketch, is now full of our three-dimensional tools again here. And if I click on the create menu and come down to the extrude tool, I can select the profiles that I'm going to extrude. So I'm going to start by extruding out my peg and my shelf. So my peg and my shelf here, I'm going to extrude them out the same amount. I'm going to extrude them out 1 inch. Now, it's very difficult to see that I'm actually doing anything here because I'm looking straight down at my sketch. So in the at the navigation cube in the top right-hand corner, if I just click and drag, you can see that I am indeed making a three-dimensional thing there. That shelf and that peg are protruding from my sketch. How are we doing? Cool. Cool. No, and you can just click on, you don't have to hold the control, you just click on each one of the three objects there, and as you click on it, you'll see that number grow. So then you got a third item selected there. Yeah. Exactly. Cool. Yep, that's totally fine. Yeah, yeah. So once you choose one and hit enter, what it will probably do is it will hide your sketch. So,
Oh, wait, I think I extruded them the wrong way.
there is no wrong way. It's all right. Mine actually extruded towards the back as well, and I don't know why it does that. it's
Well,
fine.
If you change it to a negative one, it would extrude it up.
Right, but in theory, in my mind, positive one should always go towards the front, but I don't know. It doesn't, it's fine either way. So,
How do I, bring mine up?
so yours probably, yours, once you extrude to something, yours probably looks like this, where you can't see your sketch anymore.
Mine's flat still, so.
Oh, is it flat still? Oh, you're good, yeah, just twist your navigation cube if you click and drag on that. There we go. You got some three-dimensional objects right there. Yeehaw. All right, and if your sketch is hidden, you can spin down the little triangle over in our browser. We've got a Sketches folder here. And in that Sketches folder, you can click on the little eyeball and it will turn your sketch back on if it is not visible. This is a default setting in Fusion that after feature creation, after you extrude something, it automatically hides your sketch. I think it's annoying. It is the one default that I changed in Fusion, was that default. So now the last thing we need to do here is extrude the actual light socket or the light cover part of our sketch. So from our create menu, I'm going to go ahead and grab the extrude tool one more time. And this time, I am going to extrude everything except for the peg in our shelf.
And the holes.
And the holes, correct. And I'm going to extrude that out 1/8 of an inch. You think that's fine for a light cover, Mike? You think for a light cover it should be thicker than 1/8 of an inch? Like for safety? Okay, cool. So yeah, 1/8 of an inch, 0.125 inches. It will automatically join the peg and the shelf to our back plate because our operation here is set to join. So it'll automatically join those things together and make one single unified body. And then I think for good measure, the last, actually let's do this. So I've got housekeeping to do, and then I'll walk around and see how your light switches are looking. So I've got a sketch that I can name. To name a sketch or name a body, you just have to click on it, pause, and then click a second time. And I'm gonna name this the cover. Literally anything is better than sketch one. And this body here, I'm gonna click and rename it the same way. So I'll click, pause, and click again. And then I can rename this body in my bodies folder to, I don't know, also
Body.
cover.
No.
It's all, yeah, exactly. Body 0. No. Also cover. I think that's fine. I'm only going to have one body here. I'm only going to have one sketch. So it's not really that important. It's just a best practice. It's easy to have a sketch that's got 27 documents, got 27 sketches. Nice. I like the customization. That's very nice. Cool. Yeah.
I didn't either.
Exactly the way he made it.
That cube there, you can click and drag on that navigation menu.
Mike, do you happen to know the spacing on a double?
Exactly.
Like from one light switch to the one parallel to it?
Yep, exactly.
Just the back.
Just the back, yeah. So
I
just
wanna
that
say
bit,
2
that's
and 3/8, but I'm not sure. Let me grab a double gang. I know we have some double gang light switches out there.
You don't need to do it right this second.
There we go.
Well, I was
Cool.
gonna ask Carl if he
Perfect.
knew,
That's it.
because I don't have all the numbers memorized.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
But
so
I
you
know we
click on-
have some
and then pause
blanks
and then
out there.
Now you can just type in whatever you want.
Those are the ones
Cover.
you
You can call it light switch or
an outlet next to it.
It is.
Yeah,
Same
you
thing.
could
I
actually
call,
kind of
I
do
call
that
my
too.
body also cover.
Cause then the
Um,
hole would be different.
just kinda
for
good
the-
practice.
Well, then it would be
taking
dead
that
center,
out.
and then you have two cutouts
Yeah.
above and below, unless you got the other
So you
type
just click
outlet,
off to
which
the
is a
side, and there
rectangle.
you go, there's one.
I'm more familiar
Okay,
with
is there anything else?
I am gonna do one last thing on my drawing. The last thing that I'm gonna do here before we call it is just kinda cosmetic. The edges here, right now are a hard edge, and I'd like those to be a filleted edge. On a light switch normally, it kinda is a curved edge. So I'm gonna add that in, so, from the modify menu this time, now that we've got bodies, we can modify them. So, from the modify menu, I'm gonna go ahead and choose the fillet option. And I'm gonna go through, and I'm gonna zoom in, and I'm gonna pick the front edges of just my light switch. So my shelf isn't at the top, so I've got some edges up there. If your shelf is right at the top, you won't have edges up there, and that's totally fine. Your light switch cover can be however you want your light switch cover to be. I won't make you have a light switch cover that you don't want to have. That is not the way the Makerspace works. And I'm just going to take this arrow, and if I just drag it in, you can see it rounds off the corners nicely. And I've got a nice little rounded
Oh shoot, I missed it.
rounded bit there. Just within the modify menu, I chose the fillet tool, and then I just had to go and pick the edges of my light switch, and then give it a dimension, or to kind of, and this is another thing that I don't really necessarily type in a dimension for.
0.8255.
Oh,
What's
hey,
the
hey.
nearest major fraction?
0.82.
The-
125
in a
would be
two-gang-
13/16.
In
Oh.
a two-gang cover, the center-to-center distance between the switches is approximately 1.8255.
So 1 in, 13, yeah, 1 in 13/16.
Okay.
You people have fancy houses with more than one light. You 1%ers.
Yeah, but by your front door, usually you have a switch for the outside light.
You have an outside?
Believe it or not, when you open the door, there is something on the other side of it, you know?
The lights in my
Well,
hallway
you
in my
can afford
apartment
that.
building are just on all the time. I don't have any control over them, so you know. But that is a good point, Mike. And thank you. So and we kind of learned how to do that, right? We kind of learned how to add a sketch dimension to an object, right? When we gave it sketch dimension from these 2 points. You would, if you had more than one switch, if you got one of those fancy houses that's got more than one switch in it, you could draw this rectangle that we just did over here, right? And you could dimension it from the first rectangle that we make. I will leave that as a challenge for next week, if you want to do that.
I'll have to, yeah, I'll do it, but I have some
And
questions that overlay for the class.
next week, if you have problems with that, I'm totally here to help. Cool?
Cool.
All right, so next week is the last Monday of this month, and then starting on the 3rd, we're going to alternate back and forth between beginner and advanced classes, or intermediate classes, right? So, come to a couple of beginner classes before you come to an intermediate or advanced class. I leave it up to your own self-decision whether you're feeling like you're intermediate or advanced in that particular day. But I'd like to delve a little bit more in deeper into some of these features, making assemblies and joints, doing all sorts of fun stuff. So it'll give us a chance to get a little deeper into Fusion. If we break it up in beginner and advanced. And that again will start on the 3rd of April. April 3rd will be our first advanced class, intermediate/advanced.
Definitely looks right.
So Cool. So that brings us to a close, and we will see you next week.